Let's divide the polynomial 4x cubed plus 6x squared minus 18x plus 5 by the polynomial 2x plus 1. Or another way to say that is divide 2x plus 1 into the polynomial in the numerator. So in other words, 2x plus 1 is the divisor. So we're going to set up our long division. We're going to keep the divisor, 2x plus 1, on the outside, and the dividend, 4x cubed plus 6x squared minus 18x plus 5 underneath. So when we do this long division, we want to focus on the leading term in the divisor, 2x, and then we want to start by looking at the leading term in the dividend and thinking about how 2x divides into 4x cubed. But another way to think about that is, what do I have to multiply 2x by to get to 4x cubed? So to get from 2 to 4, I would multiply by 2. And to get from x to x cubed, I would multiply by x squared. So the first part of the quotient is 2x squared. And then what we're going to do is multiply the 2x squared times the entire divisor. So 2x squared times 2x, that's 4x cubed, and we're going to put that term underneath the other 4x cubed. And then 2x squared times 1 is 2x squared, and we're going to put that 2x squared underneath the other like term, which is 6x squared. But what we have to do after we perform that multiplication, we have to subtract those terms. So here it's going to end up being minus 4x cubed and then minus 2x squared. And so what should happen is those first terms involving x cubed are going to zero out, and then 6x squared minus 2x squared is 4x squared. So we're going to have 4x squared, and then we're going to bring down our terms that are remaining, so minus 18x plus 5, and then we're going to repeat this process. So now we are going to focus on the first term in the divisor, again, 2x, and what we have to multiply by to get from 2x to 4x squared now. So we're going to have to multiply by a 2x. So that's going to be the next piece of our quotient, 2x, and then we're going to multiply. We're going to multiply 2x times 2x, that's 4x squared, and then 2x times 1, that's plus 2x, but again, we're going to subtract those quantities. So we have 4x squared minus 4x squared, that zeroes out. We have negative 18x minus 2x, that's going to give me a negative 20x, and then we'll bring down the plus 5. And then we repeat the process again. So right now we're looking at how to divide 2x into negative 20x. So what would I have to multiply 2x by to get to negative 20x? Well, minus 10, right? So that's going to be the next piece of our quotient. So negative 10 times 2x, that's negative 20x. And then negative 10 times 1 is negative 10. So here, I do have to subtract these two quantities. And so if I subtract a negative in both cases, it's going to make both of these a plus. And so, sorry, I ran out of space here. The negative 20x plus 20x cancels, and then 5 plus 10 is 15. So I have 15 left over. And so now, I'm not going to think about dividing 2x into 15, right? So the 15 is the remainder. So here, what is the answer? Well, the answer is the quotient plus the remainder over the divisor. So let's write that out. So when I take this polynomial, this cubic, divided by this linear function, I'm going to get 2x squared plus 2x minus 10. But if there is a remainder, that remainder, in this case 15, is going to go over the divisor, which is 2x plus 1. So this, all of this is the answer to dividing these two polynomials. Okay, let's perform some more long division for practice. This time we're going to divide 2x squared plus 1 into 6x cubed plus 10x squared plus x plus 8. So we're going to think about 2x squared and what we'd have to multiply by to get to 6x cubed. So to get from 2 to 6, I'd multiply by 3, and to get from x squared to x cubed, I'd multiply by x. Now we'll multiply 3x times 2x squared, that's 6x cubed, and 3x times 1 is 3x. So this time, my like term to 3x is this x over here. So I'm going to put plus 3x underneath x. Then I have to subtract those quantities, subtract down. And so the 6x cubed will cancel and give me 0. I still have to bring down this 10x squared. And then plus x minus 3x, that's minus 2x plus 8. All right, and then I can focus on this time 2x dividing into 10x squared. So if I divide 2x squared into 10x squared, I'm going to have a 5 left over. So 5 times 2x squared gets me to 10x squared. So that 5 is the next part of my quotient. 5 times 2x squared is 10x squared. 5 times 1 is 5. And I'm going to put that 5 underneath the like term, which is just 8. I'm going to subtract those quantities. And now the 10x squared, 0 out. I still have to bring down the minus 2x. And then 8 minus 5 is plus 3. So here is where I would stop and say that negative 2x plus 3 is my remainder because I can't divide 2x squared into 2x. So I can't divide something bigger into something smaller. That's when we would know when to stop. And so the answer to this one is my quotient, so 3x plus 5, and then plus the remainder, so negative 2x plus 3 over the divisor 2x squared plus 1. So if I have a remainder over the divisor, that should be a proper rational expression. So in other words, the numerator should be a smaller degree than the denominator. And let's try one more. We're going to divide x squared plus x minus 2 into 2x cubed minus x squared. All right, so here we're going to focus on x squared and dividing that into x cubed. So x squared, to get to 2x cubed, I'd have to multiply by 2x. Now 2x times x squared is 2x cubed. 2x times x, that's 2x squared, so plus 2x squared. And then 2x times negative 2, that's minus 4x. Now, in the original dividend, there is no term with just x, there's no like term. So I'm just going to go ahead and put that next here. And then I'm going to subtract all of these quantities. Let's do that in red. So subtract, subtract, and then this subtraction becomes addition. So if I subtract a negative, that's addition. And then we'll go ahead and add those like terms here. So the x cubed terms cancel out. Negative x squared minus 2x squared, that's negative 3x squared. And then here, there was a 0x, so really I just have plus 4x. And then we will repeat. So to get from x squared to negative 3x squared, I would need to multiply by a negative 3. So x squared divided into negative 3x squared is negative 3. And then we will multiply negative 3 times x squared, that's negative 3x squared. Negative 3 times x, it's minus 3x. Negative 3 times negative 2 is plus 6, positive 6. And we will subtract these quantities, so that essentially means changing all of their signs. Then we'll add those like terms here. The x squared terms cancel. 4x plus 3x is 7x. And then we have minus 6. And that's where we are going to stop, because we have x squared, which is a bigger degree than 7x to the first. So 7x minus 6 is our remainder. So here, our long division left us with a quotient of 2x minus 3 plus the remainder 7x minus 6 over the divisor x squared plus x minus 2.